I wish good things to you who's watching this. I am Alexey, and today we are reviewing a nail-biter from the World Team Carcassonne Online Championships from earlier this year. Let me give you some context first. In the last round of the group stage, Russia is playing Hungary. Hungary, although overall a strong team, do not have a mathematical chance of advancing to the playoffs anymore. However, the results in this match will impact their overall tournament standings. Russia, on the other hand, has much more to play for. If they win, they qualify for the playoffs. If they lose, the championship is over for them. So, quite a high-stakes match, and let me remind you of the format of the match. Each team lines up 5 players. So there are 5 duels happening in parallel on 5 tables, and whichever team wins more duels wins the match. All duels are played in the best-of-3 format. At this point in the match, 4 duels have already been completed. Russia won 2 duels, and Hungary won 2 duels, so the score is tied. The final duel remaining is between Vladimir Kovalev, aka someone you know with the green meeples over here, and the Hungarian player with a screen named Siegfried with the red meeples over here. And in this duel, each of the players has already won 1 game, and so this is the decider game both for this duel and for the whole match and for the fate of the Russian team in the World Championship. So just as high stakes as you want, the perfect scenario for an American sports movie. Also, I need to say that both players are quite strong. To say the least, Vladimir Kovalev was a world champion several years ago, and Siegfried, at the very least, achieved a master's level on Board Game Arena. So both of them know what we're doing. On the first move, Siegfried draws quite a useful tile to start a city, and on his first move, Vladimir already surprised me a little bit. So normally in this situation, I play over here. I place a monastery like this, at the same time controlling the city meeple over here. This also gives me opportunity to start attacking this meeple from this side, while at the same time building up my monastery and adding points to myself. There are a couple of downsides to this. First of all, you make it harder for yourself to connect to the city. You can really only block. And second, you are creating this 2-point road that your opponent can easily claim. So I assume this is why the world champion opted for this move instead. And it has its advantages. The main one is that this 2-point road that's starting from here actually benefits him, because whoever chooses to claim this road will both add 1 point to his monastery and create another attacking square for the city over here. And this is exactly what starts to happen. The Russian player gets his first 3 points of the game via this small road, and just before he can start attacking his city, just on time, the Hungarian player gets his 8 points. Now comes another interesting decision. So obviously with this city cap, you need to start a city. But where? There aren't really too many good options. So, there are literally 2 legal placements, here and over here. And then you can think of how you're going to turn this city. I'm curious, let me know in the comments, where would you go in this situation? I can tell you where I would go. I normally place, well, no, what do you mean normally? I don't have, this is a unique situation. It hasn't really happened in our games. This is interesting how in Carcassonne, by the way, after the first 4 or 5 tiles, you usually get a unique situation, because there's so many possible combinations that after 4 or 5 tiles, you may as well get a combination of moves, a sequence of moves that nobody else has played before. Anyway, but that's besides the point. So I would meeple this, just going for maximum value, because this also adds 1 monastery point to this meeple over here. There is a downside, mainly this is a little bit sensitive over here. There are many tiles with which it is possible to block, or at the very least delay the completion of both of these features. But at the start of the game, this is acceptable because there are all kinds of tiles still available in the game. And it's actually very hard to block a meeple completely at the start of the game. Instead, the world champion went for a reasonable and more conservative route, scoring fewer points but building his city in a safer spot. The downside for that is that this guy is a little bit soft, this spot over here, and that's why the Hungarian player immediately utilizes this fact, starting an attack, a high probability attack on this spot, threatening to trap this meeple. And the Russian player does not draw the tile that he needs to save his meeple, so instead he just opts to continue his city. Probably a more precise move was to turn this cab the other way, because of the next thing that the Hungarian player did. So you see, this is a dual purpose move. On one hand, it starts a city for the Hungarian player. On the other hand, it's at the same time creates this attacking platform over here. It is physically impossible to deal with both of these threats at the same time, which is why the Russian player deals with the first threat, just blocks his opponent's meeple and his own meeple and equalizes the situation over here, because now he has a 5-point monastery that he can build up to 8 points over here, and Siegfried has a 4-point city that he can continue pretty much indefinitely over here. So these guys will sort of cancel each other out. Now, after this exchange of natural moves, Siegfried starts an attack on this little city meeple. There are still 3 tiles that fit over here, but it is still possible to continue that attack. Someone you know now starts a monastery, a valuable source of points. Generally, Vladimir Kovalev in his live stream is usually very critical about players who do not meeple their monasteries enough, so you definitely know that he will not miss a chance to score points from monasteries, and in this case, I completely agree with him. In the meantime, Siegfried makes another dual-purpose move, starting his own city and attacking this little green meeple over here. And someone you know, again, is not able to save it. But this is another interesting spot. So this is such an interesting game because, like, for every step of the way, there are at least 3 or 4 different moves that you can make, as there's so many decisions to be made, which is very atypical for the start, because within the first 10-15 tiles, normally only natural moves are made and the game just sort of plays itself. But now you really need to think hard. So I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 decent moves that you could play as green. I can tell you what I would play with this tile. I would reluctantly, but I still would go over here to connect to the city. Even though it's only 6 points and it's almost trapped, it will grow a little bit bigger up to 8 or 9 points, and 8 or 9 points in a closed position like this is worth enough to invest a meeple until the end of the game. The downside of this move is that I'd be spending a valuable city cap on that, because normally you want to spend city caps on cities, on 4-point cities, thus scoring 2 points per tile. But there are disadvantages to every possible decision in Carcassonne. You just have to pick your poison. So the world champion chooses this, which is definitely a reasonable move. He loses his meeple over here. That was not something that he could prevent. Then he draws another monastery, and the second monk goes in over here. Of course, you have to meeple this stuff at the start of the game. Anything that can score points is good. In the meantime, Siegfried just trying to get a few road points. And here comes the slight disadvantage from the previous move played by the Russian player, because now he was forced to make this move that is worth 0 points. The reason why it is worth 0 points is because he's adding 1 point to himself, but he's also adding 1 point to his opponent. But he has to make this move if he ever wants to have his meeple back. Siegfried just keeps drawing these curves, and that's why he keeps blocking. Definitely worked out quite well over here. Now some quick points for the Russian. Siegfried with another curve and another blocking attempt. And this is definitely a successful move because Vladimir would have loved to place the curve, not the curve, the crossroads over here, scoring himself another 3 points. But now he kind of needs to save this meeple because he can't afford to lose too many meeples. He's already 1 meeple down in a close position. So he sacrifices a couple of points and secures the spot over here, but also he sets up a 4-point road that he will be able to claim after he places some sort of tile over here. In the meantime, Siegfried is doing a great job of extracting maximum value from these seemingly useless tiles. So with this tile, he was able to force the Russian player into a slightly suboptimal move, and now he will be able to complete this 5-point road. So definitely a prime example of squeezing the maximum out of a situation. And now the world champion, as I said before, meeples this 4-point road, potentially 5 or 6-point road, and completes his city. And it's already safe to say that he has an advantage. If he manages to complete both of these monasteries, he will be quite significantly ahead on the scoreboard, and maybe this trap meeple won't matter that much. So Siegfried completes his road, and the world champion will now make another noteworthy move. Actually curious to know what would you play in this situation again with this city cap. So he placed it over here and did not place a meeple. Now some of you, myself included by the way, will normally be reluctant to leave empty city tiles lying around because your opponent can easily claim them for himself. But in this case, there are 3 reasons why this is acceptable. First of all, you don't really have too many meeples, and if you meeple this stuff, it actually is possible to block these 2 meeples with a reasonable probability, so not something that you want to risk in that situation when you're already a couple of meeples down. The second reason is that this is next to your monastery, so if your opponent scores some points over here, at the very least you will get 1 point compensation in the form of this extra monastery point from over here. And finally, red has already 1 meeple committed to a city, and if he spends time and tiles on claiming this piece of city over here, then this will give us more time to try and block this meeple over here. All right, and now comes the critical move of the game. So what do you play here if you are Siegfried with this crossroads? Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, but like you could have paused the video and everything. I'm pretty sure you've figured out this by now. So you have to notice that 1, 2, 3. 3 of these crossroads are out, and this is the 4th one. And also you can notice that it would nicely fit in over here. So this means if you're able to create a crossroads shaped hole over here, green will never get these 2 meeples back. And that's why Siegfried, instead of grabbing 2 points here or here or here, chose to attempt this block. And this is in fact the correct move. So even though at this point green has about a 60% chance of saving these 2 meeples, it is a high impact spot. So 4 out of 10 games, you can do a lot of damage because not having these 2 meeples could really hurt green. He already has 2 meeples trapped. Having 4 meeples trapped is really a lot and could significantly reduce his point scoring potential in the game. And this is what ends up happening. Someone, did not get lucky, was not able to save this spot. And Siegfried now completes the block in the next move. And this pretty much defines the rest of the game. So now we'll see how the world champion will cope with his massive meeple disadvantage. Well, first of all, there is some compensation. These 2 tiles that Siegfried spent on blocking this spot were valuable. At the very least, he did not continue his city, and he did not score 2 points for the road. So we have that going for us. Despite this fact, it is safe to say at this point that Red still has an advantage in this situation. Now, Green has more points on the scoreboard, and he has even more points on the board. So because these monasteries will already give him 15 points, this road will give him 4 points. But with 37 tiles remaining, Siegfried has more than enough meeples to outscore his opponent. So a bit of luck for the world champion. Now he gets this nice 8-point city over here. And if he manages to complete it, for which he will need 2 tiles, then it will turn into a 20-point city, and that will probably be the win. The point difference will just become too great that these meeples, trapped meeples, won't really matter anymore. So Siegfried now manages to neutralize this road meeple at the very least. And he also manages to neutralize the city. At the very least, this is not getting completed anytime soon. So that's why the world champion will now try to harass this meeple a little bit, while also scoring 2 points and adding potentially 2 city points to his city over here in the event that this square is blocked. This is still a possibility and something that someone should really be hoping for. Then he would have 8 points for himself, at the very least 8 points for himself, while Red would just have 1 point over here. So Red now gets a little bit lucky and manages to retrieve his meeple and get some points for the roads, equalize on the scoreboard. And now Green makes a very interesting move, which I wasn't sure was correct, but it's certainly understandable. So what I would do here, I would just place it over here, adding 3 points to my city, hoping to later block this connection, and also preventing my opponent from meepling this piece of city and trying to connect from the other side. Well, someone, did this instead, and this is also understandable. Of course, the downside is that you kind of add a point to your opponent, but the upside is that this big city over here is out, which creates more blocking opportunities. If you manage to put a triangle over here and another piece of city over here, then this will be unfillable. So he's definitely looking forward to blocking this stuff. Now he also manages to get his meeple back. But Siegfried now trying to connect to the other side, so this is the thing that I was talking about. And now someone has to block at least one of these 2 connections. Otherwise he won't have enough meeples to fight for this big city, and it will be worth a lot of points and would likely be game defining. So he starts his block, and at the same time start a city. Siegfried just keeps racking up points, and now we are at another crucial point in the game. What do you do with this city tile? We kind of have another Sophie's choice. So first of all, with city caps, you normally want to use them for cities, right? And then you kind of want to place it over here. But that would make it way harder to block this connection, because you would also be blocking your blocking square. So this is why Vladimir chooses to sacrifice this all-important tile and add 1 point to his opponent, but make sure that this connection gets blocked. Another downside is that he starts to attack his own city with this piece of road over here, but you're gonna do what you have to do. Of course, Siegfried now just keeps hammering on with these blocking attacks, putting more pressure on the green meeple and now forcing him into one other uncomfortable move. So as you see, notice how these starting tiles, 1, 2, 3, 4, these cities with a straight road, all four of them are gone. Which means that with most tiles that Siegfried's going to draw on his next move, he can place here and block this meeple forever. So that is why someone makes this difficult decision. He makes sure that there's at the very least one city tile that's suitable over here, this triple city with a road, so giving him at the very least a 50% chance of getting his meeple back. And 50% is better than 0%. But here comes another downside, is that he leaves this he's forced to leave this empty city cap, and Siegfried scores another 4 points. So this block, although necessary, turned out to be very costly. And this is very often the problem of playing down too many meeples, is that it's not just from the meeple disadvantage itself that you lose points, but there are all kinds of consequences that that help your opponent gain further and further advantage, like this. So now the situation of green is very difficult with this 3-1 disadvantage, but fortunately for him, there are not too many tiles to play, so he just needs to hold on and be lucky enough to draw the city tile over here. Now he manages to score 3 points for this road over here, at the same time increasing the value of this city tile that he needs. And that's normally a good situation. If you're ever in a low probability situation, like if you need a sequence of tiles that is 50% or less, at the very least you want to try and make them high impact. And this is what happened over here. If Vladimir is lucky enough to draw this tile, he will not only continue his city, but he would also be able to score 4 points for this road. In the meantime, the player with the red meeples just keep grabbing points, and he's now even ahead on the scoreboard, and he will soon equalize with these monasteries over here. He manages to complete the connection at the very least with one meeple, and now someone is faced with another difficult decision. So normally, if you are at a meeple disadvantage, even if you have only one meeple, a standard move with a city cap is to start a city something like this, right? Just facing somewhere far away so that it can't be blocked, and it's usually considered acceptable. But the thing is, now every point matters, and in case he draws some other point scoring tile, so let's say if he draws like a city with a curve to score 3 points over here, or if he draws his triple city with a road, he would need his remaining meeple to score his 4 points. So that's why he can't really afford to leave himself with 0 meeples. On the other hand, you could consider a different strategy. One of the commentators on the Russian stream was suggesting that perhaps Vladimir could think about this. And the thing is, you're investing your last meeple to try and take over this big city, but the city is so big, it's already 13 points and will be at least 15 or 16 points upon connection, that even if green leaves himself with 0 meeples, he will actually have enough points to win the game. 15 points from the city plus 16 points for the monasteries would likely be an insurmountable difference with only 14 tiles remaining. So Siegfried just wouldn't have enough time to outscore his opponent even with all the meeples in the world. The problem with this is that the probability of connection is pretty low. So first of all, you can notice that many connector tiles like triangles and triple cities are already out, which will give red enough time to either try to block this connection or to neutralize this connection with another city meeple. And this is not something that someone you know can afford. I don't remember what the exact odds are, but given on which tiles are out, I thought it was approximately 20%, so definitely not good enough. So that is why, to extract at least some value from this tile, someone you know chose to close down the city altogether and not risk Siegfried winning the city outright for himself. And this is the move where the meeple advantage shows very clearly. So Siegfried drew absolutely the same kind of tile as someone you know did in the previous move, but because he has the meeples, he can just start getting more value out of it. So here comes the field meeple with an extra city cap in a field. This field can easily grow. That's why someone you know needs to get rid of this cap ASAP. Siegfried now just continues growing his field, forcing Vladimir to another difficult decision, placing the curve over here. So here's what this move does. It makes it more difficult for Siegfried to block this meeple entirely, but at the same time, it makes it more difficult to complete this city. In fact, while someone you know was at 50% before, now he's only at 25% because he needs a unique tile to fill in this hole and then another unique tile to fill in this hole. He would need a triangle with a field like this, and there's only one of those guys left because 1, 2, 3, 4 of them are out and both dividers are out. So basically, he's giving himself a 25% chance only to win the game. But the thing is, in a situation like this, beggars can be choosers. And very often, when you're behind, you show skill not by creating high probability opportunities for yourself, but just creating these non-zero chances so that you can give yourself a shot at getting lucky. Siegfried just continues the roads. Another interesting moment, by the way. So someone you know draws a pretty much useless tile, just a straight road. You can't really do much with it. Like, you can't start a 3-point road. That would be just too reckless because he needs the meeples for something else. So what do you do over here? Try to extract value from this tile. By the way, Vladimir actually will make a mistake this move, but the commentator on the Russian stream was screaming the correct move. So can you find, how do you make something useful with this straight line? And this is what the commentator was suggesting, and this is something that I agree with, placing it over here. So taking away a potential monastery spot. Here's why. There are still 2 monasteries left in the game, but only Siegfried has the meeples to use these monasteries. So you want to prevent these monastery spots from happening. Instead, the world champion placed the straight line over here, starting an attack on this meeple. But the thing is, this attack is not particularly valuable. It doesn't accomplish much, even with the next move that we'll see the world champion does. But now, of course, Siegfried gets the 7-point monastery. Excellent spot for him. Now, this 6-point road and the 6-point field and the 7-point monastery more than compensate for these 16-point monastery district for someone you know. And now the advantage is already super clear. So yeah, that was the correct move. Now with this curve over here, but the thing is, like, it doesn't accomplish too much. It only constricts this meeple a little bit, and well, it wasn't particularly useful. So you see, now Siegfried can't put this tile to continue his road, but there's still this spot over here, and he just ends up scoring 3 points for this road. All right, and here's where green gets his luck. 4 points for the city and now a 50% chance to complete his city. So we went up from 25% to 50%. Siegfried continues his city. And now someone you know spent a lot of time here calculating the points. And then he figured out that for him, the only chance to win the game is to get lucky and draw the triangle tile to complete his city over here. That's why on this move, he can safely commit this meeple and score 4 points and just hope for the best. And this is exactly what happened. Siegfried's adding 6 points with another monastery. Someone you know scoring 12 points for the complete city. Siegfried now coming with another point for his monastery. And the game is over. So that was certainly very dramatic to watch in real time, at the very least for me. But it was very interesting to see how Vladimir managed his meeple disadvantage, and then at the expense of many inconveniences for himself, tried to save his meeples, even giving himself quite low probabilities. But when you're behind, you do what you have to do. And that's why good players are good players. They find these outside chances of winning, and at the very least, they give themselves an opportunity to get lucky. More interestingly, someone you know didn't actually win this game, because as you see, the score is 89-89. But if you remember, the Hungarian player was the one who started the game. And according to the rules of this tournament, the player, in case of a tie, victory is granted to the player who started second and not first. And that's why someone you know was declared the winner of this game, and as a consequence, the winner of this duel, and as a consequence, Russia won the match against Hungary and qualified for the playoffs. And then later on, they went on to the finals and were able to get second place in the championships. So that's literally as close as you can possibly get in a match in the World Team Carcassonne Online Championships. I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and I hope you've learned something from this. Yeah, thank you so much for... Oh, yeah, don't forget to subscribe and like and everything. That usually helps. Also, please comment with any questions that you have about the game. You know, it's so complex. I don't think I've covered all the moves. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.